You okay?
Yeah,
All the stretching.
I'm just stretching.
It's
Still
cold
waiting
down
for
here.
us to start yoga.
Start yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we'll have to start yoga sometime soon. I guess that's going to be a new thing in my life. Guys, don't make fun of me. Girls, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, so today we're just drinking our regular IPA number 5. Well, I say regular because we're really broke right now, as it so happened, and I haven't had a chance to go get more luxurious beer. For those of you who are arguing with me this morning about my hands, I don't know if I can do this, but
Why did
no
you?
scars.
Why did you
No
die
scars.
on? Or why? Can
No
you
scars.
explain
See?
what that was
Shh,
about?
shh, shh. I promised you guys a video of my hands. No scars. This is not the scarred hand. No scars. It was just weirdly folded and the shadow hit it weirdly. They're just callous from being rough and working man hands.
Why did you kill yourself?
In solidarity with Caustic Dreamer. He's having a really, really hard time and he left all the servers.
Why?
Because he's having a really hard time. Why? I don't personally know. I have to talk to him actually, probably after this.
Okay, so he decided to leave all the servers, and you decided to leave too.
Yes. No, I didn't decide to leave because I'm clearly in the servers.
Okay.
I'm playing into the melodrama. Is what
It
I
happens
do.
every time we open that beer. It's always spits out. Every one of them does it.
Do
Try
you know what
that
this means?
one.
Do you see how full that is? Do you see how full that is? Do you know what that means?
Why don't you open that one too?
No, but it's full. It's properly been.
Okay, can you open that one too?
Okay, hold on. This is my deer beer glass with my IPA number 5 by artisanal. I don't know what to call it. Whatever. It's artsy beer with 8.2%, which I always forget that it's 8.2% because that means that.
You're gonna get drunk?
Maybe. Yeah, see, it's really full. The way they canned it is full.
I guess that's nice of them.
Yes, it's nice of them to actually fill the beer. There you go.
Okay, now give me my beers.
All right, we're gonna add this to our beer collection.
Does
Remember,
a beer
IPA number
become
5.
plural once it's separated?
Beers? Well, you mean like you keep pouring yourself a new glass, or
So
whatever.
this is still beer, even though it's in two separate
You
containers.
drink beer and you go buy beers because you buy more than one beer. You're going to drink a beer because that's one beer that you're going to drink over multiple occasions.
Okay.
Just like I am going to drink this beer over multiple occasions.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a really nice beer, by the way. It's really nice and hazy, and I want you guys to see how hazy that is. And I wish this camera was a nicer camera. That's all I wish. Is that
Well,
you can see how nice and hazy that shit is.
let's focus on making rent.
Let's focus on making rent. So I'm looking for another job. Another one.
A second
To
job.
do weekend stuff.
Yeah. But you
'Cause-
can do that in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Because March is family time. Because my entire family's birthday and our new year is in March.
Yeah. Persian New Year. Everyone's
Which
birthdays.
means the first day of
stickers.
spring is also coming.
Which
So-
means the groundhogs will be out.
Oh, no, that already happened like 3 weeks ago. Groundhog Day was 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
It was the same day as Memo Day. Groundhog Day and Memo Day were the same day.
The hell is? Oh wait.
Oh, the whole
Day.
memo thing that got released.
Oh, by the way, for all of you that are following me and are give a shit about the political aspect of this all, I came up with an idea that might not be the only idea, but might be the only solution to the idea. And I only came across it because I came home to Siggy listening to Joe Rogan. And they're talking about the hashtag Me Too thing. And the hashtag Me Too thing has gotten really, really badly on my nerves. It's like, it's just making me furious. So here's my suggestion. I might make a video about this later, or I might just rely that people watch this podcast and do it. We need to flood every aspect of social media. This is my Art of War stuff. Every aspect of social media with violent pornography and make the hashtag Me Too hashtag synonymous with rape fantasies. That's what we have to do.
You mean like make it Me Too, as in Me Too, women have rape fantasies?
Yes.
I don't. Okay, sure.
So we just
If
gotta
that's what
flood all the social media. Look, I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but I'm also saying a lot of it is illegitimate.
A lot of it is, but speaking of Joe Rogan, the evolutionary biologist that you had on, talk about how there is just the problem with the Me Too movement is that because most women have experienced sexual assault, they're making that seem like most men are perpetrators of sexual assault, where it's a small number of men who have multiple victims and therefore they end up assaulting lots of people.
Yes, and as well as that, they now have renegotiated the meaning of rape to mean. Oh, we did a bunch of podcasts on this. The definition of rape is being catcalled now. So you know what, guys? You know what? Hashtag Me Too. I make it happen. Make it happen. I need to find someone
well, it's
who's.
not like men
I need to
haven't
find
experienced sexual assault either.
No. I refuse to be victimized. I refuse the victimization standards.
No, but I'm saying
I
because
reject victimization.
just because most people experience it doesn't mean most people are perpetrators. It just the people who are part of those disorders that we can talk about, like the cluster B disorders, and we all know a few we just come across them in our lives.
The problem, we all know people that are shitty people. The problem is that people don't do anything about shitty people, and those shitty people will interact with many people down the road. And we will have this thing. But no, seriously, meme makers, get on it. Just find some of the gruesomest, weirdest, hardcore porn out there.
Well, then feminism is going to say that rape fantasies are a way that women cope with.
They already do. They already do. I've seen the articles.
Yeah, and so that's not going to fix anything. They'll just say this is more evidence of rape culture.
The point of it isn't to fix anything. The point is the next time somebody hashtags or searches the Me Too, they go hashtag Me Too, and let's look what this hashtag is. They're going to be bombarded with a whole lot of bestiality porn.
So let's actually trigger victims of sexual assault by, I guess, if you're gonna
why would victims of sexual assault go out of their way to expose themselves and to completely fill their screens?
I don't know, because we live in the age of social media.
No, that is a fundamentally false dichotomy there. The rape victims don't want to go around looking for more rape victims or rape stories. If rape victims are out there looking for rape stories, then chances are they're already on the websites looking for that same stuff themselves. The point is to make it synonymous so the news has a hard time dealing with it.
It's okay, but it's also like a way. I mean, again, I have a problem with the movement too, but it's also a way of women saying that they've experienced these things and support each other, and like it's something that does happen. Like, it's not like just, I don't know how.
Yes, but it's a hashtag. It's a hashtag.
I think all hashtag campaigns are dumb.
That's right. All hashtag campaigns are dumb. And I want to reclaim this one to mean bestiality porn and...
Although the ALS bucket list thing actually raised a lot of money, and they actually made a huge brain breakthrough in ALS last year.
That's great. When they fix ALS, and that wasn't a hashtag, that was a straight up challenge. That was a video challenge where you had to dump water on people, which I get and I can applaud. And I could say, well, look, a lot of people said, look, there's a lot of idiots out there throwing ice bucket fucking water on each other for nothing. And then a year or two later, they're like, oh, by the way, they actually raised a lot of money. And then those people have to eat their words. But they won't, of course, eat their words because they're those type of people who will say, oh, I always knew it was about raising money. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The internet is just full of squeaky wheels right now.
There's good that comes out of the internet too, just because there's
the hashtag Me Too movement has nothing good coming out of it. In fact, it is perpetuating the entire notion that every woman in all of existence is a rape victim, regardless of whether she is or not. It creates
and whether she feels like one or not.
Look. As feminism goes as a movement that's so carefully constructed around the meanings of words and perceptions and notions. But they have no problem. Like I say, oh fuck it, I don't like Islam, and they go, oh you're Islamophobic piece of shit who deserves to be put in jail. But they go, oh fuck all men are rapists, and they're like, what kind of cognitive dissonance is this? Like you can't say all men are rapists, but when I say I don't like Islam because it's a religion of not peace, I'm an Islamophobic piece of shit.
Can we talk about what other things
Well,
feminism has ruined?
This absolutely falls into the category of it.
It
The
does.
guy we're going to be covering actually, what did he do? He did the Lucifer effect,
Okay,
an
so
explanation of
can
how
I-
everyone has evil inside of them,
Uh-huh.
and therefore can succumb to those exact same evils. Hence, feminism, guys, feminism. Luciferian feminism, brought on by Marx. That's also based on Luciferian ideologies.
Are you done?
Never. This beer is still full.
Okay, can I start now?
I don't know. I don't think we segued into anything, so I think we can still freeballing it.
Okay, I would like to. So,
So segue.
okay, I was trying to. Okay, so I am doing I'm doing an assignment, and so why not use the opportunity
By the way,
to
guys, laugh at her face, because look at what she's doing. She's using real paper and real pens.
yes.
What is that? Fuck the trees.
I like
Fuck the
notes.
plastic
I like
companies.
writing things down. It helps me process things.
Brand new $1,200 laptop, and she's like,
I
fuck it.
use the laptop too. Oh, for fuck's sake! Can you let me do talk, or are you do you want to just go on a rampage?
I haven't done one of these in like 3 weeks.
That's not true.
That.
Shut the fuck up and let me talk.
Go ahead. Let her
Okay.
stalk.
Okay, so I am doing a paper on Philip Zimbardo, who is a social psychologist, one of the most famous social psychologists. And anyone who has taken a basic introductory social or just introductory to psychology class has probably come across him, but he's most famous known for the Stanford prison experiment. And that was the experiment done, I think, in the 80s? 80s.
Is that not in your
No,
notes?
because I'm not actually talking about that, but I just wanted to kind of give a brief interview. We'll post the links to his TED video for both what we talk about today and the Stanford prison experiment. He does a thing called Psychology of Evil. That's where he talks about it, but that's where he took a bunch of students. He randomly assigned them to prisoners and guards. They they got the real cops to come and simulate arrest, and then they brought them, and within like 4 or 5 days, all of the guards started horribly abusing all of the prisoners, like physically, sexually, psychologically, all sorts of ways, and it had to be shut down. And so interestingly, he actually came up again because remember when all those, like sometime in the 2000s where all those pictures got released of the Iraqi soldiers who were torturing,
Yes.
yeah. So he actually he actually went to their defense, kind of, because so many of the things that he saw in those pictures were actually similar to what happened in his experiment. So it was like real, like it kind of validated, it validated his experiment because it literally the same thing got replicated in real world experience.
Well,
And that was-
that same thing gets replicated in real world experiences in everyday jails.
Yeah, but even like the
Every
fun,
time
like even
around,
the positions and
not
the ways that they put.
publicized.
Right. But it's also like even the way that the types of torture that came up were very similar in the ways that both scenarios played out and stuff. So anyways, he's now moved on from that, and he actually does a lot of stuff on heroism. So now he's like beyond doing what causes evil, and he wants to kind of go into how do we promote heroism in people. And he does a TED video called "Why Boys Are Falling Behind," and this was in 2015.
See, that victimization comment from earlier actually comes into play.
Why?
Because. Keep reading.
Okay. So we're finding that, like, so here's some of the notes that he talks about. So this is happening across the globe, that boys are falling behind in education, in school, in almost every, like, in health, in most features globally. So this is not even just a North American phenomenon. They're falling behind in business, socially, sexually. They're more likely to be obese. They're failing to connect to women. They're becoming consumers rather than creators.
Guys, I wonder why they're failing to connect to women.
I know. So becoming consumers rather than creators. So, and he specifically talks about the porn, television, and video game industry and food industry. And he does right off the bat point out that one of the problems causing this is political correctness. So there's all of these rules that are telling men what not to do, but nothing that tells them what they should do. And outside of roles of them either being warriors or breadwinners, we haven't had any conversation about what the role, like, of what the new evolution of role of men, and I guess both men and their relationship to women, is going to be in the future. And so he's talking about how, like, because these traditional roles don't fit, men are escaping and boys are escaping, and they're going into video games. They're opting out for a safer world. And it's interesting, one of the reasons that video games is attractive is because in video games, the more you practice, you will get better. Right? So there is that gratification of putting, like, effort into something and it paying off in some way.
Can we touch upon each subject individually? Because
Yeah.
I have a lot to say on all of those subjects, because I am a male who consumes pornography and video games. And occasionally food, but isn't affected by advertising as much as one would think. Video games. Let's start there as far as why boys are falling behind. Well, I guess we can ask what they're falling behind in, but why they're escaping to video games at the very least is the simplest one. He is right. He does talk about how video games are very goal-oriented. There's no right or wrong in most video games, because most of the time you're always playing the hero. You're always the chosen one.
And you don't get rejected.
You are always the chosen one, and you are always the hero. Yes, that's a fundamental. Yes. You know what? As a side note, Ezekiel's been wanting us to play anime dating sims as a joke. Just for fun, just live stream a group of us sitting around and going through the motions of playing an anime dating sim. This actually might be a really interesting social experiment for you,
Okay.
to see how all of us can sit there and decide on the decisions you go through, and how a male programmed a video game to respond to most male answers. And it
Okay.
is most male answers because, well, you'll see if you ever get around to hanging out with us while we play these dating sims.
Okay.
The chance of rejection is incredibly small, since most video games are actually based on rejection. I don't like the fact that he's actually saying that, because the majority of your interaction with the world is through a gun. It is actually a rejection of everything, of everyone. Most video games are what?
I don't think he means rejected like losing. It's not losing.
This
It's like rejected by society, like the world that you're living in.
I think he means more than anything. I think he means being rejected by the female protagonist or antagonist of the game more so than
and that
anything
could
else.
also be my
Because
notes too. Maybe I just assumed that.
maybe,
yeah.
maybe as someone who doesn't play video games very often, you would not have as much of an insight into the subject. But look, the majority of your interaction with the world is through a gun, which is inherently rejection itself. You dull out the majority of rejection. Now, when you're playing multiplayer games, it's normally you and your team against another team, which is also a form of rejection. And if you've ever played video games with Trigger, you know that he'll reject his own teammates all the time by blowing them up.
Yeah. I
What-
don't need to play video games to know that.
Mm.
But, well, one of the things he does point out specifically about games is that games are made by men, designed for boys, and they value. And so here's what he means. I think, again, maybe why the note of rejected comes out. They value, and he sees these as values. They value male values such as competition, domination, and aggression.
Yes.
And women reject these. Women are saying these are bad things. Competition, domination, all of these are bad.
This is the two sides of society, where the feminists, not women, the feminists, are primarily saying that these are bad qualities. I think they've coined it over the past couple of years as toxic masculinity, where these are toxic masculinity terms. But as a side note, I don't buy that for a fucking second, because I believe this is their way to make men back down when women go for positions of power. As opposed to actually having to compete like everyone else, they want women to have an easy way in, and therefore
Yeah.
say things like, this is just toxic masculinity, you're in constant need to compete and fight, just so they can slide in easier.
And women do like competition.
As
so
we
yeah.
all know, males and most of society is predominantly tuned and geared psychologically and, dare I say, genetically, to cater, believe, and accept women into it. If there's a sexual involvement, sexual aspect to the relationship as well, they're much more likely to accept and embrace the female. Now, this actually goes back to our previous argument about whether men and women can be
Well,
friends.
I want to come back to that because that comes into the solution section.
Okay.
So this is why, like, I do want to have a natural conversation on it, but I do want to get to some of the points because you are going to bring up some of the stuff he brings up. So if we just get it all out there, then we can just talk, right?
Oh, hold on. Okay, fine. I believe that the toxic masculinity argument is a garbage argument designed to remove competition to help feminists move along through
Ahead
the
of
ranks.
life, yeah.
Through the ranks, period. It doesn't matter whether it's life or rent control or anywhere. They just demand acceptance wherever they go, and anyone who stands in their way is toxic masculinity, and therefore is a homosexual, bigoted, whatever, or homophobic, bigoted individual who doesn't deserve the time of day.
Yeah.
This also applies with standards of beauty. They want to get rid of those, so the feminists that aren't beauty standardized will embrace it.
Yeah, women are never going to let that happen.
We'll embrace that notion, making the pretty feminists actually succeed that much easier. There's no ugly feminists spouting fucking there's no ugly feminists in the forefront of the feminist movement. You know what I mean?
No, they are. I don't even know who is in the forefront of the feminist movement today.
You don't, because even Anita Sarkeesian gets up in the morning and pretties herself up to go to the UN to talk to people.
Yeah, so does Emma Watson.
Emma Watson is one of the prettiest, most sexually coveted females around, and she's saying what?
Well, feminism was never supposed to be like sacrifice your beauty, or else like it was about embrace your beauty as a woman, sexual liberation, the body.
Oh,
again, yeah. This is the women get being womanly was supposed to be a good thing about feminism, not a bad thing.
Well, it depends on who you talk to and what you talk to them about, but it is a trap. It is its own inherent trap. It's men have to get out of our way, but also we're creating a society in which okay, how do I put this? You know what? Never mind. Let's just move on.
Okay.
The video game aspect is really interesting, and I do want to comment on one thing. He has not yet explored the avenues that I have explored. I've been trying to put together a video explaining why I know that video games are addictive and inherently bad for me. Not necessarily saying they're bad for everyone, but that's the notion. Like I don't make videos being like, oh, you know what, suicide is bad for me.
Well,
it's clearly bad for society, specifically because the route that video game creators and video game developers have taken recently by literally hiring people like him to tune and gear video games to
become specifically addictive.
Slot machines.
Yes, the same way slot machines.
Not specifically like slot machines. They hire people like him to make video games more addictive in every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about this recently. Hashtag Gamergate's not over. The fact that games journalism isn't talking about this as much as we need, and it's really strange that only the leftist video game reviewers are the only ones that are left and are still talking about this, because this is fundamentally against what they stand for. This is the shrewd business sense of taking a random shooter where you and your team go out and shoot things.
Well, I want to get to that too.
and literally make it a gambling algorithm.
Yeah.
That tunes your entire, like, we know about the okay, well, whatever. I'll get into this another time.
Yeah,
let's move on. Let's carry on. I have a lot to say about
I know,
stuff.
but
I
like,
rarely
so
get
do
to touch
I,
upon the subject of psychology, especially the subject of psychology of video games, the male masculinity, the thing I know the most about.
Okay, you're like jumping way ahead.
I'm freeballing it.
Okay, well, okay. Anyways, fine. So now I lost the track where I was.
Just find the notes.
No, because like you said stuff, so now I wanted to address it. Like he's not saying video games are a problem. He's saying the society is a problem and boys are escaping to video games because society is the problem.
Yes.
And the way that boys are being dealt with in society, and video games is a perfect outlet and a perfect escape because of the way that it's designed. Yes, please let me talk. And yes, now we're moving into a phase where video games and technology in general and marketing issues are designing technology in a way to numb out your brain and make you need that kind of instant gratification, which he talks about. So he actually did research on time perspective, and he talks about there's actual people who are more future oriented versus people who are present oriented. And overall, hashtag not all, overall, men tend to be more present oriented and women tend to be more future oriented.
Yes.
Which is why most women usually have to
genetic.
nag. Yes. And yeah, there's lots of evolutionary reasons for that. So because young men are, and what he talks about it is he calls it they're trapped in the present hedonistic zone.
Yes.
So and the way that video games becomes the natural way video games becomes addictive, not like the crazy things they're going to start doing to get us more addicted.
You've seen me play video games for 17 hours
Right.
straight.
Right.
You know
Yes. But is the fact that it allows that instant gratification and present orientation, and so video games are a really good way to escape. They're very prone to being addicted, and he talks about that more.
Okay.
But
just to touch upon it, I believe that most males, as he said, are very now-oriented, present-oriented. And video game, it's almost genetic in us. It is genetically inherent. That's why when you talk about, okay, you keep bringing up that women keep wanting to just talk about the problems while men are oriented towards fixing the problems. This is one of those cases.
well, it's the fix-it reflex.
The fix-it reflex is inherently rooted in that.
Well, it's inherently rooted in most people, actually. Women too, and they have to train psychologists. Like when you get trained as a and this is like why I might not be a good clinical psychologist, and I move towards social and experimental, is because everybody has that So if someone says to a problem, I've been feeling tired, they'll be like, well, are you sleeping enough? Are you eating well? How much are you exercising? How much work? How much are you sitting inside? People start trying to fix your problem instead of letting you naturally just discuss it, and maybe they'll naturally say oh yeah, maybe I haven't been sleeping well once they get to it. People naturally want to, but men are generally more wanting to this is one of the things that I find is the same issue in so many couples. And most of my friends and who talk about their problems with their boyfriends or spouses are always saying he just doesn't listen, right? He just always wants to control things or fix things, and I just want to get things out. And so yeah.
The one thing women love us for, being handy and needing to fix things, is the one thing they can't stand when they want to talk about the problems.
No, but they'll tell you when they want you to fix things.
Oh, they will absolutely tell me when
But
they want me to
anyways,
fix things.
that's sidetracking. But so he comes to, and so what are the reasons why boys are escaping to porn and video games? So,
see, okay, that's the whole thing.
Do you want me to
maybe escaping, but maybe okay. Here's my problem. This is why I wanted to comment on it. Right now, I know I have to go look for a second job. Right now.
Okay.
But anything I do right now isn't going to bear fruit until when? A week, 3 weeks down the road, 2 weeks. How long is it? Okay, I've applied for jobs in Toronto a year ago that I still haven't heard back from.
Yeah.
Okay, I've applied for jobs recently that are still not closed on Indeed, and that's months ago. I've only been working in my current job for 2 months, something like that, and so whatever I apply to right now for that second job to make up that extra income isn't nearly going to be as gratifying or in the moment as let's say me going to Twitch right now to stream some more Dark Souls, because I feel like I have more of an impact.
Right, but so this is what I'm saying, and that's
I'm adding to it. I'm not arguing. I'm not negating it. I'm just saying that these are the things that I can do right now. This is why it's so appealing. This is why it's there, because I can go and I can beat the boss. I can raid. I can do a raid boss with me and 4 other people and feel more accomplished than sending out resumes for 40 hours a day.
Yeah. But so the reason though so what he's trying to say is that video games are now becoming the only way, one of the only ways where men in society can actually feel accomplishedness, because of the way of structures like you were talking about, and because of for men's disposition to be more present and instant gratifying thing. But I don't think that's just in men though. I think that's in women too. They just do it in different ways. So, but fine, women do plan for the future. You would talk about girls planning their weddings at whatever age, or like generally, like when I think about money, I think about like what can I do now that's gonna make me money next month.
Okay,
So
I
yeah.
also think about that. But again, I am currently okay. Well, we're getting really sidetracked here.
Yeah. It's getting really hot too.
Okay, well, time to fucking turn this down.
Yes, please.
I love the fact that I can just turn down the heat in here. But it's a hassle. So no, instant gratification is the one thing that does sell. It's if you're thirsty, buy Coke. If you're thirsty, buy Pepsi. If you're hungry, get some McDonald's because that's instant. Like if you're actually out and about, there's nothing more instant gratification-y than literally dropping by a McDonald's and being like, "Give me 2 burgers. I want it now. I'm loving it."
And you're right that corporations know that, and they try to make it so that whenever you feel the need for anything, there is a picture of a McDonald's sandwich there for you to fill that void.
Well, that's okay. This is from my leftist position, but also still there. I understand the evils of marketing because I understand marketing. This is also why I opened this whole thing up with I'm not as affected by marketing because I don't accept it. I reject it. I reject the notion outright.
Okay. So now let's get into some of the
Except for video games and tits. Apparently,
Okay.
tits and video games.
Just be patient. Can you have some future orientation right now and
I'm
let me?
admitting my flaws. I'm sorry. I'm opening up to the internet
Your
for a
instant
second.
gratification won't even let me get through the freaking notes.
That wasn't instant, okay? Those intros and those things were implanted well ahead of the start.
Okay.
Then, well ahead of this, whenever this
So
started.
boys are 25% more likely to be living at home with their parents than girls and staying at home with their parents. And so what are some of the reasons for this? Mothers, okay, so here's some of the issues where women are also part of the problems. When mothers tend to spoil their sons while fathers tend to spoil their daughters. But what happens in a world while most sons are being raised by single mothers? Right? So he brings up single mothers are on the rise. 40% of women in America who have children will be doing it without fathers.
Another point of feminism, it's trying to promote single motherhood as a power thing, as opposed to actually pointing out the fact that it's actually a negative thing, and is ruining most of North America and the Western world. But go on.
Right. And so single mothers, and so here are some of the problems of why single mothers, not that they don't love their kids enough, it's just because it's harder to be a single mother. You have more high stress, you have to maybe handle more than 2 jobs. Having 2 salaries rather than 1 just technically makes life easier, shocking, but and again, like who knew that growing up without a father might have consequences?
Every psychologist since psychology was invented.
Yeah, but apparently not against. Apparently, no, single mothers woo, just woo. So.
Well, hold on. Do you see the problem with shit? What are they doing? They're destigmatizing by creating an acceptance around something that shouldn't have acceptance. Like we've been getting a lot of that recently, where I turned it down. I didn't turn it off.
Okay, can you turn it off?
I'm still cold.
Okay, fine. You can turn it off in a few minutes because I'm gonna need to take a pee break and I'll get you a.
All right,
beer.
another beer. Yeah.
Okay.
No. The problem is that we all fundamentally know that we need a minimum of 2 parents. Like me and you live together, but we know that if we bring in another person into this world, what's gonna happen?
We're gonna need our parents.
We might need our parents because one of us is going to be disabled.
Like I can't imagine 2 people having a kid without the support of both sets of grandparents. Like I come from a collectivist world where like my mom was talking about how when she had my sister, literally both mothers moved in and were there to like help throughout. Like so her mom and my dad's mom were there, right? So like all of this support, and then we somehow think that one woman on her own with multiple children can just like handle everything.
Well, it's not on their own. The whole point is that taxpayers have to pitch in, the government has to pitch in, and there's a lot of other specialty programs that she has to enter. Why are we destigmatizing?
And how is that helping women, by the way?
To be alone?
Encouraging women to be alone and have children, or not have children and be alone, or just not have children. I don't know. But anyways, okay, so So he literally points out that like 41%, right? So that means there's millions of young boys in America and throughout the world who are growing up without a father. And so daughters need their fathers, but he also talks about that boys need their fathers in different ways. And so we'll get into that a little bit more. But here are the consequences of growing up without a father. So boys with single moms tend to have higher rates of ADHD. They have more behavioral problems. They have higher levels of stress, especially because the high stress that their moms have to deal with. They're more likely to use. They're 4 times more likely to use drugs, alcohol, a list like hard drugs, marijuana, like just all of the things. And
But see,
yeah.
that's also a thing, isn't it? It's if you're present oriented more so than future oriented, it's okay to do a bunch of drugs right now because that's not going to affect later. That's just affecting the now. That now is only temporary.
And here's my favorite point, that he even says that even when fathers are in the family, they tend to be psychologically absent. There was a study that found that on average, boys spend 30 minutes per week talking to their father, and they spend on average 44 hours per week in front of a computer screen. So just to kind of put that perspective, they also found a study where they followed some of the most successful men who had made it to the top of their fields. This was a Harvard study. And what they had found, that income did not matter, the family status income. When they had interviewed them, they found that it had nothing to do with how rich they were, but but the warmth of their childhood and their closeness to their fathers. Children who remember having family dinners, which is what he talks about, is where you share family values. So dinners are where families sit down and talk. Our like rates of success are children who don't report having family dinners are 4 times more likely to smoke, more likely to use drugs, more likely to have behavioral problems, and more likely to be diagnosed and medicated for ADHD. He also talks about Ritalin. And then I want to get to your favorite part, is the schooling process. So this is where we haven't even discussed the school stuff.
I just want to relate to a lot of what he just said there. Kids that don't eat dinner at home with their parents and everything along with that list. I'm pretty sure I was diagnosed with ADHD, but my parents are always anti-drugs, so that was definitely not a thing. Which is also weird that I was diagnosed with ADHD when I'm really fucking lazy. I just don't like concentrating. Yeah, a lot of my childhood was not spent eating dinner with my parents. It was always eating dinner somewhere else, mostly with my brother, actually. I spent more time with my brother eating dinner than with anybody else. Yeah, my parents were always away doing something. I know my mom would make us food and then go do her job, and my dad would just never be home. But bad schooling process, trying drugs, all that stuff. I totally fall into the trap of all those things.
And here's the...
So it's really going to be up to me to make sure that if we ever have kids, I have to be present, communicate. My communication skills are retarded.
Well, we haven't even touched on that stuff. He talks about all of this. Like, this is why he's amazing. This is why, like, our assignment is to do a paper on a psychologist that has influenced like psychology in the world, and this is why I'm choosing him, because I think he's amazing. Like, and this is not even like the core of his work. This is stuff that we've been talking about, but like he's been saying this like 20 years ago. By the way, so like, yeah.
Maybe we should do our own little podcast on Yuri Bezmenov.
Oh, for sure. So here's some of the things about why specifically fathers are important. So here's the thing. So mothers, and I think this is true, that mothers are more inclined to unconditional love, and I don't necessarily mean unconditional love, but fathers are more inclined to want to earn, like, you have to earn respect, right?
Yes.
And they're harder on you in a lot of ways. And like,
Yes.
even as a girl, for example, so like me, like, and dad spoiling me, like my dad, I'm a daddy's girl too.
Yes.
But my dad was always harder on me than my mom when it came to academic achievement. So like when
Yes.
I didn't do well in school, my mom would always defend me and make excuses for me. And my mom is not all about unconditional love. Like she wants other things from me and stuff. But achievement was not the most thing for me. It was other factors in life that she also thought that were valuable. But like my dad was easy on me on a lot of other things, but when it came to school, was like, no, like you do well. There's no, like when I got a bad grade, I'd show my mom first,
Right.
was pretty much the thing. And so that's one of the things that boys, and so as even as a girl, boys need this even more, right? So like men, like boys specifically need a strong role in their life where they have to earn respect, they have to prove themselves they have to feel like they're worthy of something. And so that's one of the other things where like fathers are more important. And so then he talks about so that was the mother and father role. So now he talks a little bit about porn, so we can get into that or the school stuff. But 2-second break. We're back. Okay. So then this is like where he talks about porn. So there's so some of the studies show on average boys are spending 13 hours a week on video games. He talks about how the 20 like so porn is now 24 hours 27 like 24 hours 7 24/7.
Porn is available
20
24 hours a day, 7 days
yes.
a week, 365 days a year.
And that's new in human
Woo!
history. So even in the past, like, you know, you had to go to galleries, to stores. Access to porn was restricted. Now you can,
Galleries?
at wherever you'd go to get porn. I don't know
What
where.
kind? Okay. When I worked at my dad's video store, there would be a couple of guys that would show up at all hours to hide in the porn booth to buy a bunch of porn. And I never understood why they bought porn because I was aware that the internet existed.
Right. But this is prior to the internet. Porn was kind of harder to get. You had to actually have
Magazines?
money for it.
Magazines.
Right, but kids would have to like rely on stealing their dad's like porn stash, like, and so they needed
It
a
wasn't
dad to do that.
stealing if it
So,
was just
which
there.
goes back to the original issue of not having the dad in the first place to steal the porn stash from. Again, full circle. But anyways,
I see where Freud got his "you want to fuck your mother" thing because if your dad's not around.
okay. So he talks about and he does talk about how porn and video games are digitally rewiring the brain. He says by the time boys are 21 years old, they have spent 10,000 hours playing video games. So there's the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like if you want to be a master at anything, so he says you can get 2 bachelor degrees in that time.
Yes.
So just the amount of time that dedicated to
The amount of time that I've dedicated to video games thus far would have probably equaled a master's and maybe a PhD.
maybe we wouldn't be so broke right now. Just saying.
Just saying, if I dedicated as much time to my education as I did to Diablo 2, I would have already been a doctor living in California.
Okay, well, so when I shit on you and nag you next time to do better, just remember this. I can quote this, this line.
This will be saved forever. The problem is that I started playing Diablo when I was 16 and then stopped till I was 19.
Yeah, you
I also
could have
played-
been doing
no,
good
no,
in
no.
school in that time.
I could have been doing
Starting
good at school, but you
university.
know what was absent in my life? A mother and a father figure.
Yeah, well, see, cycle. It's all a cycle. So,
Well,
and so here's some of the other stuff. Is that boys don't have an outlet, which is why it goes back to the video games. Society's telling boys that they are not interesting or acceptable. And so that's why you find this like living alone internet revolution of boys like going and escaping and becoming these like home hermits.
okay. That's a Japanese thing that started a while ago. They're called NEETs. N-E-E-T. They're literally outcasts from society. Kids who have not finished high school in Japan and spend most of their time watching animes and having sex with anime pillows. That's
Yeah.
a trend that happened a while ago.
Yo, guys, that's your future.
That's a trend that happened a while ago, and that's why Japan is also the first place where MGTOWs arose. An entire group of males in this society said there's too much pressure from the older generation to get married and have kids, so we reject the entire notion of coupling. And they said, "Fuck it, we're going the wrong way. We're gonna do whatever we want."
See, too much collectivism can result into that too. See.
Well, do take note that Japan is
Very collectivist, highly individualistic.
I know all those things.
Extremely
the
nationalistic.
problem is that Japan is also riding America's dick really hard, and they love everything American. The collectivism has met America's individualism, and the rejection of regular values is purely because of the introduction of the individualistic approach to life. It's I want to do what I want to do regardless of what society deems right.
Right, because society, if they are free to let people do what they want and actually support that instead of forcing people to be some mold of what they think people should be, I don't know, people might do better.
Hold on. You do understand that the mold is of success, and if you do not want to fit the mold of success, then you want to be a puddle on the floor.
So there has to be a middle ground, a moderation where you can be successful by embracing.
Okay. Wait. This is a whole different argument and a whole different conversation, and I will fight you anytime you want.
Okay, so then we will have a Silerious bar brawl.
We can't have a Silerious bar brawl. We're having a Silerious bar brawl right now. The entire thing was inspired by this right here.
Yes, I know. And we still have to do our other bar brawl at some point. But
what other one?
I'm still
Someone challenges
fight.
me on guns. I'll murder him and leave. I'll shoot him
I'm
with my
supposed
metaphysical
to fight for
gun.
Jessica Jones.
Are you still doing that?
I don't know. I hope so. Although, even if I don't, then I can live with the satisfaction that I made Trigger watch the whole second season of Jessica Jones and hate every single minute for no reason.
So you're the one that's causing a suicidal.
So maybe I won't actually do that. And I know he doesn't actually listen to any of our podcasts, so he'll never know that I actually said any of this. Until everybody in the server points it out to them. But anyway.
Not everybody in the server listens to the podcast.
Okay, so then there you go. So,
there's like 3 or 4 people.
So a little bit more about porn. And
yes.
He also wants to. So he actually acknowledges that video games and porn are not going anywhere, and nor should they. And so it's so
much triggering.
Okay, and
why can't your shirt stay up? Just can you not wear a shirt that stays up?
And so
guys, I'm drunk and her shirt won't stay up. This is a problem.
Yes, tell the world.
I will tell the world. She's using her feminine wiles to make me dumber on the podcast.
Yeah, so maybe I can fucking get through a sentence without you interrupting me. Here,
Feminism,
shoulder down.
Not once.
Yeah, I should bring my boob out. Anyway, okay, so he talks about...
She's not joking, guys. She's not joking.
So the porn... Focus! We're talking about porn.
Exactly. You were talking about porn, and you're exposing your tits to me.
I am not. Anyways, so they're huge industries. They're making more money than any other industry. They're not going anywhere, and they're gonna get better at what they're doing over time. So all of the things that are making people escape to them are, you know how like guns are not the problem. Porn and video games might not be the problem.
Can I just point out something really interesting? Literally yesterday, I suggested that we play a porn video game. Now,
not literally yesterday, literally 20 minutes ago in this podcast.
No.
How drunk are you?
What are you talking about? Yesterday, I told everybody that there's this new game out there that's basically an anime porn game. What you do is you shoot things until they get naked. It's really weird, but it should happen. Okay. That's how I'm going to get my viewers, guys.
And so here's some stats about porn. So porn, 75% of the audience is male. The average boy, and again, he doesn't define boy, like age group of boy, but he differentiates between boy and male, men and males throughout his talk, so there is a distinction at some point, but the exact age limits are not clear. But the average boy is watching 2 hours of porn per week, and he points out that's usually in between breaks when they get tired of video games and they need a little bit of a
Did you say
break and
2 hours
stimulation.
of porn per week?
The average. That means a lot or more are watching more. That's
Okay,
the
so
average.
the average is people who jerk it within 30 seconds between rounds.
Right. And
Right.
and then he also says in the UK, so not even America, in the UK, Pornhub was the 35th most visited website from ages 6 to 14 for boys from ages 6 to 14.
This is a statistic I need to talk about. For all of you people that are alt-righty on my server, I need to point out 6 to 13.
6 to 14.
6 to 14. 14 being when you're officially a male according to the Jewish religion, but 6-year-olds are now visiting Pornhub on a regular basis. If you guys want to stop degeneracy, that's where you start. My generation didn't know what to do with it. My parents' generation didn't know how to deal with me having an infinite access to pornography at all times ever. I'm one of the few people that learned to get a free internet access. Like, I got free internet access. My dad didn't know what to fucking do. Because I skated around this thing. He's like, I'm going to shut down the internet. I'm like, I don't care. I'll find a way to get the internet for free. And back then, you could get the internet for free. It's not that long ago, by the way, for those of you who think I'm really old. No, there was services out there. They'll leave a permanent ad banner on top of your screen. It'll take up about a fifth of your screen, but they'll just give you access to the internet. It's really slow, but it worked. And you could do it. And let me tell you, I've seen most of the porn. Of all the porn. All of it. And I'm not proud of it because I was probably too young to be watching porn at the time.
Well, do you want to know some of the consequences of watching too much porn? Because he's going to tell you about them.
Oh, God. This is also my favorite part. But
Okay. So, and he defines porn like addict. So this is interesting. So addiction, he talks a little bit about it, is not just about how much you engage in the behavior, but it's also about how much time you spend thinking about the behavior when you're not engaging in it.
yes.
Okay? And that's one of the cornerstones of addiction. So what some of the consequences of porn? So instead of drugs, the video games and porn, the addiction is becoming novelty. It's becoming change, wanting change in your brain. It's becoming deep, like you become desensitized. Our brains are becoming pretty much rewired in a way.
Okay.
And so there's actual porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
I need to address certain points of this of this before we move on. My very first full-fledged video game addiction was Ocarina of Time. That was the very first game that I could not put down. The themes played in my head. Have you ever had that thing where you do a new thing for the first time ever, but then when you go to sleep, it's almost like you're doing that thing again? That happened to me for almost a month straight while playing Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
I was like 11, 12, maybe 13, and just every day from that point on. It didn't help that there was weird sexual aspects to the game because there's a bunch of nude characters running around. Not that they were human looking, but there was some kind of weird rewiring. But I won't get into that. I didn't get into the whole furry thing, so that doesn't fucking matter. But that game literally rewired some aspect of my brain where I could not stop thinking about playing Zelda Ocarina of Time at all for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I got really good at the goddamn game.
When I was about around 10, every single day when I woke up in the morning was so I could go to school, get home, watch Aladdin, and then play the Aladdin video game.
See, the Aladdin video game wasn't nearly as good.
Was...
No, it's because literally Ocarina of Time is ultimate boy fulfillment. The entire storyline is exactly that. It is a young kid who gets his hand on a wooden sword, and a wooden shield, and becomes the greatest hero of all time. By saving the princess, by traveling through time, by growing up and being ultra badass.
So, can I make a side note, though?
Sure.
Where I think this is an interesting, and I'm wondering if there's a gender distinction between this. I think that men are more susceptible to addiction, where women are more susceptible to obsession. Because I feel like, and okay, maybe this is anecdotal, but like I don't know, just work with me here. I think that women tend to, or I guess like me personally, tend to find something, obsessed for it, like, and that includes video games. Like with video games, like I will be into it and can't stop for a certain amount of time, and then I'm over it, and then I don't care anymore. But apparently, but what you're saying with men, maybe it's not the same, right? Like it's sustained. Like, do you ever feel that? Like, do you ever get over something? Like, do you ever feel the intense?
Well, this is where I was gonna go. Ocarina of Time was the very first time I've ever felt it, and that's ingrained in me. I feel that whenever I play any other addictive, I say addictive, any kind of video game that fills my wish fulfillment to such a degree.
Is it temporary or is it long term?
No,
right?
it's temporary because I just underwent the same thing playing Borderlands 2. I was streaming Borderlands 2 on my gaming channel, and I've been playing that game for almost 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Just straight, like every day. Me and a bunch of people are playing it, and I'm playing the one character, and I'm bouncing around, and I'm shooting things, and I'm destroying everything. And when I go to sleep, that is what I'm seeing before I fall asleep.
Okay, but that's sleep. So sleep is and dreams.
No. Before I go to sleep, not when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
When I go to sleep, and I have dreams about other
But
things.
whatever you've seen the most in your day is what you're gonna see before you go to sleep. When I was dressing for prom dresses, before I go to sleep, I see polka dots in my fucking eyes. Like that's not.
Okay,
it's a common thing.
that's fine. That's fine. I get it. When I start my framing job, I start framing before I go to sleep.
Before I went to sleep for the past like week, all I've been thinking about is layouts for the website. Like I can't stop. Like
Okay, so it's a little bit of obsession.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But I think there's a difference
the
between
point is that this is a little bit of obsession, but this small obsession gears completely to my male aspect of it. It's goal oriented.
Right.
It's 100% goal oriented. It's point oriented. It's designed like a pachinko machine. It's designed like a gambling machine. When I go and I do things and I get those level ups.
I think maybe that's the key with video games. That's different than other kinds of, and so why it touches in life, and maybe why it might be more of an obsession than addiction, because with an addiction, there is no necessary goal, right? Like a sex addict isn't trying to reach like 100,000 sex partners and ding, 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 ding.
Just think about Kurt Cobain's song, the plateau one. What the fuck is that? Everyone's always looking for the next plateau, but they can never find it. There's no plateau. You plateau at a certain point, and you just need more drugs to get there, right?
Well, I guess, yeah, you're right. I guess you do take it to the next level, and with an addiction and
Like,
adrenaline junkies and yeah.
As a side note, as my own personal ordeal, the very first time I did ecstasy, it was one of the best highs I've ever had. Best highs.
Yeah.
And every time I've ever done ecstasy since then, I've had to increase my dose significantly, chasing that same level, which I've never found. That first time is always the first time and the last time you're ever going to feel that high, because after that point, you're going to know what it's
more,
like.
Yeah.
No, it's not you'll never need more. You'll never reach that level. That first time the first time you take those drugs is never, you're never going to get that high again.
I'd like to test that theory because I've only done it once.
I will
try it again.
I will one day get my friend on here who has done more drugs than anyone I've ever fucking known.
I'm wondering though, because I very distinctly remember my experience and it didn't feel that extreme. So I'm wondering, I don't know. There's only the one time, so I don't know. So we fully sidetracked it there.
No, it's not. It's the same thing. That very first rush you get by beating a video game, by getting to the point. I had it. It's Ocarina of Time. There was a goal, there was a point, there was a story. It had my full wish fulfillment, and ever since that day, you've heard me and a few of my friends argue whether Ocarina of Time is the best game we've ever played. Why? It is our youngest point where we have reached our full wish fulfillment, trying to get the ultimate level of that wish fulfillment. Is we get the girl, but not really. Because he never really fully gets the girl. He goes back in time at the end of it to live his life out normally. Even though he beats the hero. Sorry, he beats the villain. You get your wish fulfillment of becoming a hero to grow up and be an even greater hero. The trick to that game was the fact that you grow up instantly. It's instant grow up to reach that next level of maturity, to that next level of power.
Okay.
So you play the game. You're a powerful kid. You get to beat up things with your fucking wooden sword. You reach the next level. You become an adult. You go.
Yeah,
and
it's
beat all the things you
everything
want.
on steroids. It's life on steroids. All
is
the
life on
exciting
steroids.
things that could happen in your existence are just being, and so that's
It's
why I'm
wish
saying none of
fulfillment.
this.
It's wish
Right,
fulfillment.
and it's not
Any
sustainable,
person
and
sitting
it's not
behind
lasting.
the desk playing a video game is wishing that they were that character. Why do
So
certain
then why
games that
you
go,
guys-
this game is fucking stupid?
But
I don't
why
want.
would you not want that in your real life then? Why would you not want
Because I can't all of a sudden pull out 2 machine guns that have almost near infinite ammo and destroy a giant space crab.
But then if that's the source of fulfillment,
No. This is why we started at that one place. Men are goal oriented. When we went out hunting, we had a goal. We went out as a group to reach that goal. We worked as a team to reach that goal.
why can't
we
you
do
change
not
your
eat
goal?
until we can.
but
It's
you
not
don't-
instant. It's
Okay.
not instant.
So then let's talk about some of the sorry. So let me cuz then this kind of talks about some of the solutions to these problems cuz he actually does get into it. So he just getting back to the porn stuff. There is actual correlation to porn-induced erectile dysfunction and that too much porn can desensitize, and he talks about
Okay.
how
Can I touch upon that?
yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna let you guys know right now. The majority of the porn that you're what?
Keep going. I'm just going to grab another beer while you're going.
Oh, okay.
I can't hear you. You're really loud.
The majority of the porn you're going to consume isn't going to cause erectile dysfunction. The problem is the same problem I've been preaching, I guess, is the problem of people always escalating. Everyone always escalates. Everyone always escalates. You may start as a no offense, as a slight attraction to cat girls, and you might escalate to slightly more cat girls, and then you'll escalate to full-on furriness. Everyone always escalates. You start off liking a little bit of violence in your porn, then you go on to full brutal porn, or you whatever. Everyone always escalates. That's
Yeah, and that's what he talks about and why you desensitize over time.
well, that's the problem. Is that eventually you escalate to such a degree where you will never be able to reach that same level of excitement. Like once you watch the. I'm sorry for those of you who have sensitive ears. Once you ever get into the genre of porn of that one German torture porn dungeon. You're not going back. If that's what you're consuming daily, you're not going to be able to get hard by just having sex with your wife, girlfriend, or whatever on a regular basis.
Well, there's other reasons for that, and so I think this is the part
No,
where you're...
he literally mentioned these. It's overstimulation. You
Yeah.
can't reach that level. It's the same thing. You plateau sexually. You reach the ultimate infinite point of your sexual arousal. When you literally porn caters to every single one of your whims. What happens after you reach your plateau?
Wait, okay, so here's what I'm trying to explain is that those things will only influence people under certain circumstances. So exposure is key, but the influence of that exposure, right? So like the whole thing about video games causing violence. There is
Nobody said video games cause violence.
They don't. But in people who are actually more predispositioned to violence, video games will increase their likelihood to commit violence.
And
So it is between the predisposition.
No, I am still not 100% there with you. I'm not 100% there. I believe that violent people have a tendency to be violent. When you put them into a situation,
Right, and the
like video games, where they have a tendency to get angry and violent after they keep losing over and over again, which we've all seen people rage quit. There's a reason rage quit is a meme.
Right.
If you give them the ability to rage quit and to whatever, and then afterwards they have nowhere to channel their anger out they have nowhere to channel their anger outside of their, let's say, closest proximity partner, then yes, they will become violent.
Right, so you're agreeing with what I'm saying then. So I'm saying it's not that behavior, it's the source that creates the maladaptiveness of the behavior. Porn is not the problem. Violent porn isn't the problem. Violent video games isn't the problem.
No, I never said that. I just
Right.
said people escalate.
Right,
So
but
people
it's also
find
certain
their-
types of people tend to escalate.
What I
and
said
there's-
was people find their niches and they jump into their niches, and then they take those niches and they escalate those niches to their logical conclusion.
Okay, so then we have to talk about the, and so that's what I kind of, and what I guess like I'm trying to suggest as Zimbardo is trying to get at is what are the things that cause people to escalate? Because I don't want to take away video games, I don't want to take away porn, I don't want to, right?
We touched upon it earlier. It's the hedonic treadmill.
Right.
If your normal becomes normal, then normal is no longer exciting.
Okay.
If you regularly watch German dungeon porn, German dungeon.
Right, so there's a
torture
difference.
porn.
So you're acknowledging the difference between regular watching, like someone who's watching it on the daily, and that's and any kind of exposure, right?
But hold on. He specifically touched upon something very interesting in that talk. In that TED talk you were specifically talking about, which I want to touch upon. He says there's a reason people have demanded a call back to the original, to the normal, to the amateur, where there seems to be an actual connection between two individuals who are actually having sex on screen. Now, I am going to expose something about myself. Do you remember what I said? My preferential
is
porn
amateur porn.
is amateur porn.
And that's actually the most popular porn.
Why?
One of the most popular.
It is one of the most popular. Why is it? It's because it's actually real. I understand. I'm not susceptible to the marketing.
Well,
yes, I've seen every type of porn out there.
I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna interrupt you because this is literally the next point that he gets to, because he talks about how so much of the porn that's promoted, and so you're actually pointing out what people want to consume and what is being promoted as being consumption. But what so much of the porn that is promoted is this fake, like, professional done, and he talks about there's no kissing, there's no talking, there's no romance, and so one of the things is, which is fine, like, it's not porn's job to educate children and boys and women on how they should be having sex, but when they're not getting that from their parents and or school, that's where it becomes that their source of information about sex is becoming porn. So it's not porn that's the problem, it's a lack of actual information and understanding. And so he gets into some of, like, the statistics about, like, issues that are happening within sexual education, and he talks about here's what he says. So in general, the bias against boys, so overall boys are, for the first time and ever in history, boys are getting less education than their fathers. So can you imagine that we're evolving through time and things are getting better, but men are
devolving.
Right. Actually. So there's that. Men are more likely to drop out of school and repeat a grade. And so here's my favorite point. Actually, wait, no, okay. So,
hold on, I gotta pee. And we're back.
So yeah, just the thing about porn. So, like, so the issue isn't just porn. It's about where both men and women are actually getting information about sex. And so parents are not talking to their kids about sex. And then sex ed. And so one of the things that he points out is sex ed doesn't include biology and psychology. So it doesn't include, like, the psychological, like, both elements of dealing with relationships and sex in general. And so, and parents, and I, again, like, this goes to libertarian and society argument. Should school be teaching kids about relationships? Okay. Should they be not? But when parents are non-existent,
I'm going to answer that question. That's specifically exactly that. If parents aren't around, the school systems are only teaching you the technical, and the feminists are only telling you that sex can be only consented from one perspective, and most of the time they might not want to necessarily deal with you. Like, think about that. There's a reason we're in the hookup culture, and I want to talk about hookup culture on one of these streams.
Yeah, and I think that should be a separate stream.
Okay, well, this is the direct link to it. It's if most people don't understand what involves what's the involvement in an emotional relationship that actually incorporates sex into it, then they think that the sex is nothing but the physical penetration.
But I think, again, so here's one of the things, and again, porn is not helping that, where it's not. I think one of the things that lets feminists convince women that there is a rape culture is that sometimes boys hurt your feelings, and sometimes boys reject you because they only want a certain thing from you, and most girls have experienced that. And so instead of being taught that that's natural and there's evolutionary reasons and these are things that happen because of hormones and time and stuff like that, what girls do is they focus on these times where they are vulnerable and a male has hurt them, and then they translate that into rape and sex and patriarchy and all of these things. And a lot of the reason is I think that men and women have not, like, we're evolving in a different way, and we haven't been taught how to communicate properly with each other about these kinds of things. And so that's a separate kind of topic. But and this kind of is a segue to some of the solutions. And so he does bring up some of these things in the solutions. So he just talks about a little bit more about how boys are falling behind. So less education, more likely to drop out of school. And so here's my favorite thing that I wanted to get into, that I really wanted your feedback on, is the teacher bias. Okay. So everyone knows the wage gap, right? And one of the most like signature evidence of the wage gap is the study where they took where they took resumes, the same resume, but one was named Jane and one was named John. And John, with the same resume, got a higher salary instant rate amongst employers than Jane, even with the same resume. And that's like one of the few, even Christina Huff Summers acknowledges it, that's one of the few evidences of studies that actually show a bias in the workplace.
Can I try and debunk that study?
Wait, but let me debunk that. No, because I want to bring this up. So there's that same study was replicated in schools, and they found a teacher bias. So they took the same assignment with a male name and the same assignment with a female name, and they found that the female student would get a grade 30% higher for the same assignment.
30% sounds a little bit higher than 23% or 18%, the wage gap.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, so there was, and so he even talks about, Zimbardo talks about how school is becoming a girl thing in general, like doing well in school is becoming a women thing, and also how much, so not only boys, do they not have fathers in their lives, but they're also less likely to have male teachers. So any type of male positive role model in their life, either in the home and in school, has systematically been taken away. So they don't even have teachers in the school place to play that positive influence and mentor role in the school. And then there's also a bias against them in the school.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Then there's also that 70% of men are supposed to be more obese. And then there's just the whole issues of gamers, of the constant sedentary lifestyle, the eating of junk food, the lack of with the mainstream gamers, like the people, the day-to-day, not like the ones who go to their job and use gaming as a leisure. I mean people who make their lives about gaming.
Right.
And how there's just like serious health consequences to do that. Do we need to take another pause?
No, but I'm just going to plug that in right now.
Yeah, that was my fault actually.
Yeah. It's okay. I was just wondering how long that was going for.
That was pretty much all of like his explanation into some of the causes of the problem, and then we can get into some of the solutions. But if you want to kind of
solutions,
yeah.
There's been like 60 to 70 years of social engineering around all of this. There are no more easy solutions. You either have
no, I didn't want to actually talk about the solutions yet. I wanted you to talk about all the stuff we just talked about. So the teacher bias, the
teacher bias is really, really, really strong. Most of the male teachers I know are geared towards making things easier for women. Most of the male teachers I know like to preferred females. I'm sorry, that's just the thing they did. They preferred the females in the class. They know males are males, and they prefer the females. I'm not going to say much else other than that, because there's nothing I can say. Like, we all know that the cute little girl in class who knows all the answers is better than most of the guys that just want to punch each other in the face. The grade 3 through 9, 10, 11, 12, I don't know. No? Even in university, I had the one teacher I had for one of my English classes that actually butted heads with. She told me that she has never read a book that's been written after the 1800s, and I asked her what makes her like. I may be a dick sometimes, but like she told me that she's never read a book that's been written after the 1800s, and I'm like, so what makes you qualified to grade me? When I've written plenty of books, and we're only reading books that have been written after the 1800s. And she picked one girl in the class that's her favorite, and only ever fucking talked to her. It's like the entire class was revolving around her. She wasn't a teacher; she was a TA.
Yeah.
There's the goddamn difference. She was getting her doctorate in ancient literature or some shit like that, in ancient English literature. And she, like, when I would ask questions, she would ignore me. Like, literally just ignore me. When I would suggest things, she would go, no. In fact, it was one of the worst things that... one of the worst things I ever encountered in school was when I suggested a premise. We're reading one of our... I think it was Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights was written by
That's
women
actually a good
under
book.
the pseudonym of a man.
No, was it?
Yes, it was.
Emily Bronte?
Yeah. No, it was Emily Bronte after. Originally, apparently, she wrote it.
No, she's had other
Then
books
which
that
book
were
am I
written.
Maybe it was a
That
different
was
one.
Mark.
I know. I
that
had a
was
bunch of
another
books.
person, but
Okay,
there was a
whatever.
few.
There was one book that we read that was written by a woman under the
But
pseudonym
Wuthering
of a
Heights
man.
wasn't one of them. That one's actually one of the few books of that
Actually,
era that's
Wuthering
actually
Heights
good.
may have been it because I don't think it was originally written by
That was
Emily Bronte.
originally written by Emily Bronte.
Originally written by Emily Bronte.
No, and she published it under Emily Bronte. I'm pretty sure.
I think the whole point there was that Emily Bronte wrote it under a pseudonym that wrote it under the guise of a man, hearing the story from a woman.
That was a book, but I don't think it was Wuthering Heights.
It was literally Wuthering Heights. It was a man who went to go investigate and got the story from a handmaiden that was around during the time.
I'm thinking you're right about a book that was that, and it might have been
fine.
another book, but
Fine,
I don't think it was
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. It was whatever. The book was written by a woman under the pseudonym of a man. That was written from the perspective of a man who was getting a story from a woman. The entire goddamn thing revolved under a unreliable narrator.
Frankenstein might have been that.
No, that wasn't Frankenstein.
No,
Never read
that was
Frankenstein.
written by Mary Shelley, but I think she originally
wasn't Frankenstein because I didn't read Frankenstein in school. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
The point was that I suggested that she originally did the double male thing because she wanted to feel like more of a male perspective. About a story that was inherently female driven, which is why I believe it's Wuthering Heights because the entire story is written around the fact that people keep fainting into death.
Fuck,
And
I know what book you're talking about. It's not Wuthering Heights, but it is a book, and now it's gonna drive me
literally
crazy.
people keep fucking dying from heartbreak. Literal dying from heartbreak. It's really bad.
Okay, no.
Heathcliff fucking died
Yeah,
from a
that's
broken heart.
Wuthering Heights.
Catherine died from
Yes,
a broken
but
heart.
she never
Everyone,
published the book under another
every
pseudonym.
motherfucker died in that book from a broken heart
Yes.
and a lack of a father figure.
Yes.
By the way,
That's-
lack of a father figure.
I know.
That's going that far back. This guy is only fucking writing already fucking known shit.
Although, okay, you like that book, by the way.
I did like that book.
Wuthering Heights is a good
I
book.
did like that book. Out of all the garbage that they made me read during that fucking semester,
The Bronte sisters are way better than Jane Austen.
Virginia Woolf.
And
Fuck Jane
Virginia
Austen.
Woolf
Fuck
and
Jane Austen.
Margaret
They made me
Atwood.
read Virginia Woolf. I literally read the first 3 paragraphs when this is utter garbage. This is trash. I should not be reading this in university. And then I faked every essay and everything I've ever said about Virginia Woolf.
Yeah,
And you
no.
know what? I passed the whole thing. They had no problem with my fucking dissection of her fucking writing from 3 paragraphs. Fuck Virginia Woolf.
Yeah,
Virginia
Virginia
Woolf
Woolf is
writes
shit.
the way I did when I was in grade 3. Okay? Fuck Virginia Woolf. Fucking feminist writer.
Yeah.
She overcame feminist obstacles. No, fuck her.
Actually, I don't think I've actually read a Margaret Atwood book, and we're supposed to do it in book club at some point, so maybe we'll
got
get
all
there.
fucking hyped
But
up.
Jane Austen, I was never a fan of. I like classical books, I just couldn't get
The
into.
point was that I suggested that she wrote the book from initially a male perspective, getting the story from a female because she wanted to make it more apparent or more believable that a male wrote the story.
But I don't think that's
I don't
the right
care.
book.
I don't care. That's not my point. That's not my point. That's not my point. I don't care. Shut up. And you know what the teacher's response was? She said, no. And then she pointed to her favorite female student and went, what do you think about the whole thing? And that's when I knew that class was doomed. When I wrote my final essay, I found at least one other paper writer, author of a paper that suggested the exact same thing. That the initial, that he wrote a feminist fucking paper where he suggested that her initial intent was to write the book from a male perspective to make it more acceptable that it was written by a male, told by a female, to make it more acceptable for males to read it and accept that it was written from a male perspective. And he put it in there, and I put it in everything. It was in there. And she wrote was no. In my thing. She wrote no. I cited my fucking research. I cited it, and she went no. And she gave me a 70 on the paper. I'm like, what? Really? A 70? I came up with the same shit like one other guy came up with, who's a cited source, and clearly he's making the entire situation. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Fuck that shit. I'm gonna go hit things with a hammer.
So you personally...
No. This is why I go into fucking construction, because I know my fucking goals in construction. They give me a hammer, and I hit things with a hammer. And when I hit things with a hammer, I do it right. If I write a paper...
women are better than academia and intellectual stuff than men?
Not at all. I'm saying women are horrible teachers, is what I'm saying. Women are horrible at bias. They're horribly biased.
Okay. So not what I was trying to get to. So here, can we talk about some of the solutions to these problems?
No, because I've only started on this on my academic fucking prowess of fucking talking to teachers about garbage.
Okay, can you do a personal video on this? Because I've already heard these stories numerous times.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, well, internet, you guys heard that, right? You no longer get to know any more about my personal life because
with
Siggy
your academic struggles?
has heard all of my
No, but you just don't need me here to listen to it because I've personally lived through these experiences with you. And so I would like to go through some.
Unless she's lived through them. She's heard about them, but she's equating
No, I was literally with you when you went through those university classes.
That is true.
Remember? I drove you to those classes. Please don't pretend that I wasn't there.
She did hear about. Wow, look at all that. Anyway, go on.
Okay. So here are some of Zimbardo's solutions to the problems. Okay. Number one, get junk food out of school. Are you for or against that?
All junk food out of school?
Yes, like chips and...
Okay. Non-point. Please move on.
Okay.
I don't want to live in a communist society where my literal food
no, but in school,
access.
like, really, should it be easier to get chips and cola than
Do you remember how I used to complain that Anton used to want to run for school president so he can kick all the junk food places out of the food courts?
No, but there should be other options as well to eat healthier. Anyways, okay, so more male teachers. And having higher salaries would attract more men into being teachers, which made me also note that it should be easy. It shouldn't be so easy to become a teacher. You need better training, and teachers should be actually a higher value job in society in general.
No.
So we don't need more male teachers? You don't think that men should
We need more good teachers, not more male teachers.
It's literally what I just said.
We need more father figures and less teachers.
Which is number two, legislation that supports fathers.
I was just saying, I've encountered too many male teachers that prefer the females. It is an inherent genetic bias towards females that everyone has. And it's a positive bias, not a negative bias. You have witnessed this when my English teacher got on his fucking knees, folded his hands over on my desk, leaned his head on it, and cocked it sideways and went, Loki, what's wrong? And I wanted to punch him in the face.
What? Why is that such a horrible thing?
Because I don't like being talked down to. Like he's about to suck my dick. He's my teacher. He's supposed to be my example for what a male is. He's not sitting there to...
So being sympathetic and understanding is a bad example.
That's not how males are sympathetic. That is inherently not how males sympathize with each other. We don't cock our heads, fold our arms, and bend them over and go, how are you today?
Well, maybe the reason that you're so aggressive towards that kind of a reaction is... Anyways,
Go
I don't
on.
know. I'm
Go
just
on.
saying.
Finish that sentence.
Well, because he kind of gets into men need to try harder.
Men need to try harder. And you know what's not going to help me try harder? A sympathetic approach to an explanation of how my day went.
So-
If my teacher comes up to me and goes, Loki, how are you doing today? Are you okay? Do you need days off? Do you want to take a period day? No, I'm not going to enjoy my goddamn time learning.
But
If I'm given an out of learning, I will take my out of learning. I will not accept my learning. And the person who's inherently teaching me is not stronger, better, or smarter than me at that point. If I can trick him by going, I'm having period cramps
well,
today,
I think your
sir.
problem is that you think you're smarter than everybody else.
Wait.
But anyways,
let's touch upon that for just a second. Okay, let's touch upon that.
no, can I just go? Can we?
He literally
please,
did that. He
please?
literally did that after he asked me why I was unhappy, and I told him I think the class is too dumb for me, and I believe
literally
that
just have one more page of notes to get through. Can you just?
no one can see your page of notes.
These are my pages.
See, this is how she shows that she doesn't give a fuck about my struggle, about my cares in
maybe I
life.
fucking heard your struggle. I know your struggle. I've lived your struggle. I'm living
See,
your struggle.
she's not willing to let me express my struggles to other people. These struggles are just for her to experience and
Okay,
complain
so
about.
he talks about wanting more male teachers, and where I came in because I have actually listened to your struggles and know what the bullshit that you say to me all the time
See, now
is.
she's saying it's bullshit.
Where
like she
I
doesn't believe
actually
it's
wrote
true.
a note about how it's not just about more male teachers, but about better teachers.
Yes.
Yes, and I said it shouldn't be so easy to become a teacher. Better training.
Like you're in the camera shot. Now I have to go out of my way to edit that out. Instead of talking into the microphone.
What about legislation that supports fathers? Yes, that was the other thing that I was gonna say. Also, schools having to teach life skills, finance, job skills, and sex ed. Now, I was lucky, and I actually went to a good school, and I got all those things. I went to my school. Did teach me sex ed. They did teach me how to build a resume. We actually practice interview skills. So I don't know if that's an issue in America, but my school in the suburbs of Canada, I got that. So men also do need to try harder. Less games, less porn. Try harder to be social and people oriented. Also, make female friends. Learn from them. Female friends have value. Learn how to dance.
And that's where you're wrong, kiddo. Because I have had most of my friends be females.
Yes, most
You know
of your
what I
friends,
learned
yeah,
from them?
your poor street, like,
No.
socially corrupted friends.
Before any of that, most of my friends were females. They're still mostly females.
And
You
you're
know,
actually not
in-
susceptible to all of these issues. You're actually good.
I know, right?
Right. So
Right.
maybe they had a good influence on you.
Or maybe they had a horrible influence on me.
Or maybe they had a good influence on you, and that's why you're actually in a positive relationship for 10 years, where most men seem to not be able to do that in 2016. So maybe your female friends actually taught you something about how to be an understanding person towards females, and that
Guys,
has supported your 10-year relationship with a woman.
If we want to go through all the things that my female friends have taught me over the years, it'll take about an hour and a half of me telling you about how they stole, lied, and cheated from me.
Okay, can I just finish my list, and then you can see?
Sure, go ahead. Why
Okay.
not? Why not, guys?
So men need to become more future-oriented and more goal-oriented, more motivated, and become a mentor. I will get into what women need to do better at. He does talk about that as well.
I don't care. This is not what this is about.
This is about going through Zimbardo's thing. So what does women need to do? They need to address the gender bias in media. So men are either portrayed as heroes or fools or villains in media. Mothers and sisters need to actually be compassionate and supportive and provide constructive citizens to their children instead of berating them and attacking them all the time.
Does that mean I can agree with you? Me and you can agree on the fact that we should beat our kids. Just
Where into anything that I said,
read that last few sentences.
women, need to address the gender bias in media where men are either treated as heroes, fools, or villains.
What's the next part after that?
When mothers and sisters need to be more compassionate, supportive, and provide constructive criticism.
That's it. The most constructive criticism to males, smack them upside the head.
Right, that's constructive. Okay.
That is literally the most constructive.
Women need to be better at
Sorry,
showing.
guys, she can keep talking over me, but the truth is that males react better to physical violence than anything else.
No, they don't.
All right.
And literally everything we talked about
Right.
tonight was not about that.
Literally.
It was about how men escape to those things because
of the lack of hurts.
Solutions, guys. It says right there.
Fine.
It says
Fine.
solutions.
Let's hear Siggy's solutions, and then we'll hear my solutions.
These are not Siggy solutions. These are Zimbardo solutions.
Well, I'm talking about my solutions.
Okay.
These are Loki solutions, guys.
Okay. So again,
Beat your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Women need to be better at showing how to communicate instead of nagging and berating. Those were my points. And women need to actually be better at engaging in activities that men like. So instead of women trying to learn to be completely independent, start working on how you are going to share your independence instead of crushing and turning men off.
Hint.
And here's the other thing. In the context of video games, there can actually be involvement in pro-social video games. But one of the things that women need to do is show men that they are number one, unlovable. Show men that number one, they are lovable, that they are desirable, number two, and that men are not disposable. I have that highlighted right there if you guys can't see, by the way. Okay, now go shit on all of that. That was for visual effect of the show.
Dramatic visual effect, guys. Dramatic visual effect. That was all very, very good. Very good. You want to read all of it back to me so I can comment on every single thing you've said so far?
Well, you barely dared to actually let me read through it and just wanted to tell your own story.
See how things are different in her mind as opposed to what actually happened?
So women need to show men that they are lovable, desirable, and not disposable.
Okay. So, women, when was the last time you showed your man that he's not disposable?
All the time.
You, maybe. But me and you have apparently a functional relationship or whatever that means.
Despite everything we just talked about in the past 2 hours, so I don't know.
Despite. How's that despite? Let's talk about that. Why do you feel like that's despite?
I'm kidding. I'm making a joke. It's a joke, baby.
This isn't about us.
It isn't.
You already said that me and you fall outside of these bounds. I've had majority of female friends throughout my adolescence, and therefore I have learned to
actually be better at having relationships. You don't think that there's a correlation between you having female friends and having a successful relationship? Maybe you've actually learned something? Considering that we've been together for 10
I'm sorry
years?
I have to go through this, but you do realize that I've had a sexual relationship with 95% of my female friends.
That's not what
No. This goes back to, can men and women be friends? No. Don't. Okay, first of all, why I say we can't is because I haven't always initiated the non-friend clause.
Because you haven't desired it. You haven't wanted it. You've had no desire to be friends with a female because you don't think that there's any value in it.
No, I'm sorry. You're 100% fundamentally wrong. I have tried to have female friends. The problem is when they start using me for non-friendly aspects.
Which goes back to when you were 15 or 16 a teenager.
No, it doesn't. It goes beyond that. But not very far beyond that.
Okay, well, you were in your 30s now and future-oriented.
I'm in my 30s, but 10 years into a relationship.
Okay.
You see how what I've learned to do plays into how I stayed.
So you're not better than what you've been learned? You
of
can't
course.
go past that?
I've been better at finding mates that are stable and aren't willing to abuse me and use me.
Yeah, not so much.
Not so much. No, absolutely not. She will fully admit right now that
you are my slave.
I'm her slave, apparently.
Okay, I got through most of the stuff that I wanted to get.
So now that we've established the fact that I am actually Siggy's slave.
Can we actually go to another person? Because someone asked the Caustic Dreamer, and you brought him up earlier, was talking about this person, and he was the next video after Zimbardo's video, and his point actually made me really think. And so I want to end the podcast with this. So according to Warren Farrell, most of survival and human evolution has actually come from sacrificing boys and men to die. So we've evolved as a human species by sending men and boys to war to die. And so he talks about, and so this is where this is relevant. This was a 2015 video, and it goes after Sandy Hook. And he talks about how ever since Sandy Hook, there's actually been a school shooting every week in America. Since there's no deaths, not as horrible, but there has been a kid bringing a gun to school. And so one of the things he talks about is one of the factors about them is that they're always male. So you can say that it's mental health or guns or family values, but girls live in the same families with the same access to guns and the same valiance on TV and the same access to mental health problems, but girls are not shooting up schools. And it's mostly white men in general. And he also links it to suicide and girls. So the girls will be more likely to attempt suicide, but the rate of men committing suicide is ridiculous. So he talks about how before the age of 9, the rate of male and female suicide is the same, but between the ages of 9 to 15, that literally doubles, and then plus 15, that doubles again. So again, even given men are more predisposed to violence, when we talk about school shootings and the issue, I don't know, it just really made me think that the same conditions apply to both men and women, but when it comes to both suicide and school shootings, it's mostly males. And so that just kind of touches on a little bit about what we talked about throughout the night.
Well,
and
you
the
said you wanted to
conditions.
conclude on it. I'm not sure what you want to conclude on there.
Well, I don't know. I just think like we did a whole.
So males are disposable, and they also want to shoot up schools. Now, is it because they realize that they're actually fully disposable in society that they want to shoot up schools, or is it the fact that everyone treats them like they're disposable that they want to shoot up schools?
I don't know.
Or is it the fact that everyone treats them like they're disposable pieces of shit to the degree where they want to shoot up schools, and they will go on to do other things after they don't shoot up schools, like join the military, or become, well, male feminists.
I don't know. I do. So here's what I would conclude on, where I think men and women, it's not like men against women. They need to coexist, and the problems that men go through affect women, and the problems that women go through affect men.
No.
And so we need to learn to work.
See, you're fundamentally flawed in that one line of thinking. The problem that men go through do not affect women.
I think you're wrong.
Unless you're in a relationship with one, they don't.
Or unless you have a son or a brother or an uncle or a cousin or any male that you ever care about in your life.
The majority of male problems don't arise that far into it.
I don't think that's true.
Well, again, why do most of the MRAs bring up the fact that when was the last time you gasped in horror as 4,000 males died during one movie? But everyone gasps in horror the moment a woman gets punched in the face during the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is the same thing. It's
right, and
it's
so
the same
that's again
thing
what Warren
over
Farrell is saying.
and over again.
And so again, once we move forward, we need to address like that.
No. People don't realize what's actually happening in society, and that's literally what I opened with. That's fundamentally what I opened with, is that there is a problem in society, and most people don't realize what it is. Society has geared itself towards appeasing women because that's genetically what we're supposed to be doing.
I don't think that's the only problem. I think that we are just evolving and changing as a human species, and things are changing, and so we need to learn to progress and adapt to that. I do think that some of the problems that men are...
Why do we go from the fact that males were doing what they were doing? Literally throwing themselves under tanks and blowing themselves up.
But that wasn't a good thing.
Starving themselves.
We don't need to go back to that.
Whoa. Okay, so what males were doing wasn't a good thing, but what women are now striving for is?
I think we need to move beyond throwing our young males to die in wars and sacrificing
And
them.
instead, we should just leave them to sit at home and live at their
No.
parents' house until their parents die.
No.
Well, the question
Why
is,
am I doing this stream? It's because
well,
I don't want
that's
that to
my question.
happen.
Why did you say no to one, but not know what the answer is to the other?
It's this like kind of this dichotomy is creating that if women do better, it means men have to do worse, and vice
It
versa.
does. It fundamentally does. Because genetically, and in every other way, we're different. Because men need a different learning environment. Men need a different nurturing environment.
I think we just need to be better at gearing to, just as that we've become more sensitive to women's needs in the recent future, in the recent past, we need to be better at addressing both genders. And so one of the things that he even talks about, again, males need to be better at learning from their females. They need to learn how to dance. They need to become more future orientated, and schools need to actually enforce men and women working together more, because this is also changing in human history.
Fundamentally, learning to dance is going to achieve nothing.
It's going to give you social skills, and
fundamentally, learning to dance is going to achieve nothing. You know what's going to achieve something? Doing something. Dancing is not inherently doing something. Dancing is inherently expressing the way you feel to a beat.
It can be more than that, though.
It could be more than that, but it isn't.
And so
do you know why it isn't?
Is that men need to evolve beyond just providers and resources.
This is it, guys. This is exactly it. It's men need to evolve
men and women need
beyond
to change.
Everything that is created.
I think
everything that has been established, everything that has been taught.
The key about evolution, it means changing over time and figuring out how to do things better and how to be better and how to solve the problems and working together as two genders versus going up against each other.
Why is learning to dance your argument?
That's just the point that he made.
No. I'm not asking about his point.
It means about willingness to work together as two genders.
Dancing is not a willing to work together.
Okay, sorry. That was a quote he made.
Then why did you bring it up?
Because I'm bringing up the quotes from
bring up some more quotes that he brought up.
So he
talks
about...
I will continue to speak as a male who knows that fundamentally learning to dance is useless.
If you want to do better and get along with
then I will learn to dance. And that will make everything better.
Okay, well, I mostly went through all of my notes. So, I think we
So how's learning to dance better?
So through some of the solutions that he talks about is we need to actually be better at incorporating technology in school. Men need to try harder a little bit and less games and less porn, and also try harder to be social and people oriented and make female friends. Women need to be better at not berating men and not being so critical.
Men need to change their biology. Men need to change their physiology. Men need to change their genetics. Men need to learn to be better friends with women. Men need to change the way they look upon the world. Men need to destroy their entire biology structure altogether. And what do women have to do?
So women also need to learn to actually engage, to come into men's world more.
How? When you just told men to get rid of their entire male perspective.
By trying a little bit harder to get along with women.
Men isn't about getting along. Like, you can't get along better with men by getting along with women. That's not fundamentally how it works. Men don't fundamentally get along. This is the problem with this entire thing. Men don't fundamentally sit around and get along with each other.
And so they shouldn't ever? We shouldn't try to strive
That is not biologically or genetically part of our makeup.
So
you know
we can't evolve beyond our makeup?
You can keep talking over me. That's not going to change my point. Men aren't designed to fundamentally sit around and get along. The entire genetic point of being a male is to be better, stronger, prettier, or better at fucking dancing. Right? You know what males are fundamentally best at. They're not about getting along and singing Kumbaya. That's what male feminists are all about. Which are the chameleon of the male fucking community. They pretend like they are that thing when really they're not. That's not who males are. This is why Trigger's camp might actually be functional. It'll teach men to have the spy mentality, that little secret agent mentality, where you pretend to be part of the society you live in, but you're not, just to get ahead in life. Because none of that makes sense. How much can I pretend to be something I'm not at a genetic level before I do want to shoot up a school?